Okay, so today we're going to talk about cells. We're going to focus on animal and plant cells, the parts that they have, and similar and different parts that they have. So first of all, what is a cell? A cell is the smallest unit of life that's going to conduct all of life's functions. So anything that is as small as a single cell organism or a unicellular organism, all the way to multicellular organisms like humans, are made up of a bunch of different kinds of cells, and they each have a specific job to do. When we talk about cells, there's cell theory. So remember, a theory is an idea about something that has been proven correct many, many times. And the following are the parts that make up the cell theory. First, all living things are going to contain at least one cell. So if you are unicellular or multicellular, you are a living organism. The second is that cells are the basic unit of structure and function of all living things. So all living things are made up of a bunch of different cells, and they each have their own job to do. The third part is that all cells come from other cells of the same kind. So when we're looking at cells dividing and making more of them, it's a process called mitosis. We start with one parent cell, it makes a copy of its nucleus, and it splits into two identical daughter cells. And that's how we get more cells. So if you have any that are dead or damaged or need to be replaced, this is also how we grow. Inside of all cells, there are tiny little structures called organelles, and each one of them has a specific job to do. So it could be something like producing energy for the cell, or moving materials around the cell, or storing materials such as food and water and waste. Each one of them has a specific job to do to keep the cell working. If we talk about some differences between plant and animal cells, those are the two main types, and the two structures that are specific only in plant cells are the cell wall and the chloroplast. So let's talk about what those are. The cell wall is a rigid layer of non-living material that protects that plant cell, so it's around the whole outside. And then the chloroplast is a green structure that's going to capture sunlight in order for the cell to go out through photosynthesis. So we know that only plants go through photosynthesis to get their own food. We as humans do not. We have to eat our food. So let's look at some of those other structures. These are in both types of cells. The first is the cell membrane, and the cell membrane is actually all the way around the cell. So we're going to look at a diagram later and you'll be able to see all these parts. Its job is to make sure that the cell kind of has a shape. It's going to control what gets in and out of the cell. So it's like a security guard. It's going to make sure that nothing bad gets into the cell if it's doing its job correctly. So that's a really important function. Next is the cytoplasm, and this is all throughout the inside of the cell. So if we're thinking of it as three-dimensional, it's kind of like the jelly filling of a donut. So that's the part that's in between all the other organelles. And if we were to give it kind of a job, it would be like the floor. If we thought of the cell as a classroom, the floor contains desks and people and chairs and all kinds of stuff. That would be what we would equate the cytoplasm to. The third part is the nucleus. This is very important. It's right in the center of the cell. It's also kind of like the brain of the cell because it's in control. If we were to give it a job, it would be like the CEO. So it's like in a company, the CEO is the chief executive officer. So they're like the boss. They're making all the decisions. They're running things in the company to make sure everything's going smoothly. It also contains chromosomes. So every cell in your body has this genetic material that makes them unique to you. Next is the nucleolus. This is inside of the nucleus, and their job is to make sure that the ribosomes are produced. So they would be like the manager of a department. Around that is the nuclear membrane, so it would be similar to the cell membrane, but around the nucleus. So they're going to control what gets into and out of the nucleus. And then also the chromosomes. So remember, they are in the nucleus. These are little thread-like structures which are going to determine all of your genetic traits. We also have ribosomes. These are tiny little, they're almost little spherical objects. They're the tiniest organelle that we talk about. And they're all throughout the cell. A lot of them can be found in the endoplasmic reticulum, which we will talk about later. And their job is protein production. So they're kind of like assemblers. They're going to make that protein, kind of put it together for the cell so that it has energy. The endoplasmic reticulum is in the cytoplasm. It's usually around the nucleus. And this is the site of protein production and transport. So we would often find ribosomes here on what's called rough endoplasmic reticulum. If there are no ribosomes on the endoplasmic reticulum, it's called smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So they'd be kind of like an assembly line. They're going to produce that protein and they're going to transport it to where it needs to go. And then we also have Golgi bodies, which are also in the cytoplasm. And their job is to package and transport those materials from the endoplasmic reticulum. So they would be like boxers. So no, not like underwear boxers or, the athletes like Muhammad Ali, but boxers where they are packaging that material. So they're putting them into boxes like if you were moving. There's also the mitochondria, which are in the cytoplasm as well. They're the site of energy production for the cell. So we say that they're like a generator because they're going to be producing that energy. So we know that a generator for, like, say our house would run on gasoline and it would create energy. So that's why we call the mitochondria the powerhouse of the cell, because it's going to make sure it has energy to go through all those functions that it needs to. We also have lysosomes. These are in the cytoplasm. Their main job is to remove waste from the cell, so we would kind of equate them to a janitor, a custodian, because they're going to remove those from the cell so that they don't build up. And then we also have vacuoles, which are in the cytoplasm, and they kind of act like a storage bin. They're going to store that food and waste and water for the cell. In animal cells, there are a lot of very small vacuoles, and in a plant cell, we will see later that there's usually one central, very large vacuole that they will use to store the food and waste. Okay, next we want to look at a diagram. So just want to kind of talk through these parts. These are the diagram parts you need to know of a plant and animal cell. So we have Golgi bodies to the left there. They're in red. The endoplasmic reticulum has two arrows. It's showing you both the rough and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. You've got the cell membrane is around the whole outside. It's that peach-colored outer covering. The mitochondria is at the top there. It's kind of a kidney bean-shaped organelle. The ribosomes are each of those small little blue dots that are all across the endoplasmic reticulum. Then you've got your nucleus and the nucleolus right in the center of the cell. You've got vacuoles, or those red spheres. And then the green pieces there would be the lysosomes. This is a plant cell. So again, we're looking at some different parts here. You've got the chloroplast up top. There are some Golgi bodies, just like in the animal cell. The smooth and rough endoplasmic reticulum again. You've got the mitochondria up at the top. The nucleus and nucleolus, same as the animal cell. You've got ribosomes all throughout there. The vacuole is right in the center. And then you've got around the outside, this green layer is the cell wall. And then the cell membrane would be the layer inside of that. You can kind of see it's cut away here at the corner. And that's about all we have. So that's comparing the difference between animal and plant cells and all the parts inside of them that keep the cell running.